from here. You put whatever figurehead you want up there to say a bunch of shit, but we got it. We got it.
And we're going to take out his brother just for thinking about running to be president. About being president.
Just for getting close. Just for getting within eye shot of the presidency.
You won California in the primary? Yep, you're going to be in some weird hallway in a hotel. Okay, thank you.
They were like, because after killing JFK, they were like, we took out people just because they saw somebody who knows something. You think we're not going to take out RFK?
Yeah, I know. It's like, they almost were like, we killed the president. You think we care about his younger brother who was like attorney general? Like, come on. Like, we'll do whatever we want.
So, to dive into this topic, I'm going to spend more on, you mentioned that he said he was going to break up the CIA. There are that and many other reasons as to why JFK had to be killed. I'm going to get into those next week. I figured we'd start with the juicier and grislier details.
Government Secrets, Episode 26, Official Secret Number 1. After pre-show banter and current events.
I like whenever the game show voice guy has to pause to think about what is coming next.
Just sort of
All right, stick around for, I think, commercials.
Stick around for filling time while I figure out what you're sticking around for, JFK.
I'm going to slow down words to kill time because we're vamping on Government Secrets, brought to you by the CIA and Michael Winslow.
Yeah, and the guy from Police Academy who made a bunch of noises.
The sound effects guy.
Okay, so because I'm not, I know that, we're doing this over 3 episodes. I know we can't get into every detail of the JFK assassination. It would take fucking years. I'm going mostly off of, this is a great book called JFK and and the Unspeakable. Everybody should check it out. But I'm going to focus on kind of little portions of kind of the things that were most, excuse the pun, mind-blowing to me, and also, even if you don't know anything else that happened, you don't know any of the names, outside of JFK or Jackie or something, but you don't really know what happened. If you just know these couple little things, it's impossible to ever go back and say that, oh yeah, it was Oswald, one dude shot from a book depository, that's it. So I'm kind of giving you the pieces that make it just impossible for it to have just been Oswald, although later I'll get into how it wasn't Oswald at all, maybe next week. But for this week, we're going to focus on the fact that pretty much, even if you've never read any of this shit, you've never studied it or anything, you know the basics, which is we are told JFK coming down the road with Jackie in the car. Obviously, there's other security and stuff, guys on motorcycles, open roof car, and he is shot, and we're told he's shot from the back multiple times, coming from the book depository. And so that means every shot had to have entered him and entered his head from the back, because they had already passed the book depository. Okay. And when I think of this moment, the JFK assassination, I always picture, and don't put it up just yet, Graham, and we're going to put it up in a second, but I always picture the shot of Jackie Onassis climbing onto the back of the car. This is immediately after JFK's been shot, and we're told that she was reaching to help the Secret Service man onto the car to protect her and John F. Kennedy and help. And so it's this famous shot of her, her husband just been shot, and she's crawling onto the back hood of the car. And I'll get back to that in a second. But so there are if you know anything about bullet wounds or ballistics, if a bullet blows away a large portion of a skull, it's because the bullet came in from the other side. So it comes in the front, it leaves a little bullet hole. You know that from every movie you've ever seen. When a guy gets shot in the front of the head, it doesn't blow up his face. And if you saw that in a movie where a guy shoots a guy and his head explodes, you'd be like, that's not real. That's like laughable. That's like Quentin Tarantino or something. So it makes a bullet hole here, and then if it blows up a large portion, it's out the back, or it could go the other way, coming in from the back and blow out a part in the front. But the front entrance is always a small bullet hole, or the place where the bullet goes in. Could be in the back, but small bullet hole. But there are so many, and just an endless number of witnesses and evidence showing that JFK, immediately after these shots were fired, has lost the back of his head. The back of his head is blown off, which could not happen from shots coming from the back. And this is not like, oh, they found one nurse who said she saw it. And so this is like almost the entirety of the witnesses that initially, like if you find their initial statements before they've been pressured and things like that. So even Jackie Kennedy, this is her immediate description, but it wasn't released to the public until 1995. She sees a bullet hit Governor Connolly, who was sitting in the front seat, and also hit her husband. And then a piece of his skull is coming off, she says. And then she's not saying this part, but her instinctive response, immediately after this, after the fatal shot, was to climb onto the trunk of the car to try and get the piece of his skull that has been blown off. Which makes sense that she's not helping a Secret Service man onto the car, because if the person next to you who you care about has just been shot, you don't immediately just start looking around for, go to help the person. And an instinctive thing, it makes sense, is if she'd just seen part of his head fly off, she reached to get that piece of his head. And she basically said that later. But okay, so you can pull up the famous image, and this is the famous shot of her. I don't know how much we can zoom, but it's very clear that, if you can see her hand, and I don't know how much people can see her hand, but you can look up the image online. But her hand is not reaching out to this Secret Service man. Her hand is cupping something on the back of the car. She is trying to grab the piece of his skull that has come off and is on the rear of the car. And she said in her statements that weren't released until later, so then she gets back in the seat, and then she says, quote, "I was trying to hold his hair on. From the front, there was nothing," meaning from the front, there was no damage. She says, I suppose there must have been, but she didn't see any damage from the front. But, and this is again her quote, "From the back, you could see, meaning she, were trying to hold his hair on, his skull on." So she's saying the back of his skull is missing. And this fits with other things that happened. 21 nurses and doctors that saw him when he arrived at the hospital said the back rear side of his skull was gone. And even the main doctor, let's see if I can find the page. But even the main doctor who was there said, initially comes out and says that he was missing the back rear side of his head. Let's see here, 306. So yeah, Dr. Crenshaw is his name, and later he puts out a book about it. He says he noticed a small opening in the throat, which was the bullet. He says it was a bullet entry wound. There was no doubt in my mind. I've seen dozens of them in the emergency room, so it was a bullet entry wound in the front. The right rear of Kennedy's brain was gone. He said it looked like a crater, an empty cavity. All I could see there was a mangled, bloody tissue. From the damage I saw, there was no doubt in my mind that the bullet had entered his head through the front. And then 21 fucking witnesses agree that he's missing the back of his head. Now, this is, and in the first press conference. So this is a question from the first, this is the New York Times report of the, you can pull down the image, Graham. This is the New York Times report of the first press conference by the doctors immediately after Kennedy has been pronounced dead. Question, where was the entrance wound? Perry, one of the other doctors, says there was an entrance wound in the neck. Question, which way was the bullet coming in the neck wound? At him. Perry says it appeared to be coming at him. Question, doctor, describe the entrance wound. You think from the front in the throat. Perry, the wound appeared to be an entrance wound in the front of the throat. Yes, that is correct. So these doctors are then later pressured to say that they did not see Kennedy missing the back of his head, because whoever the people are involved, Secret Service, military, CIA, they know that if it becomes clear that Kennedy was missing the back of his head, then it's impossible for it to have been Oswald. It's impossible for the shooter to have been behind him. And the doctor, in 1992, Dr. Crenshaw finally comes forward, and he admits that he was pressured to change his story and say that it wasn't an entrance wound and that the back of the head was gone. And he also says that I knew that if these people were willing to kill a president, that they wouldn't have a problem killing a doctor. So a lot of people didn't come forward until the 90s because they really thought they could be killed. But it also brings up the question, like, besides the fact that this shows the bullet was coming from the front, every step of the way you see the government trying to cover something up. And if you were to believe that, okay, well, maybe he was missing the back of his head, but, that it doesn't mean Oswald didn't do it or whatever, then why would they try and cover everything up? But they were, at every step, they're fucking trying to cover everything up. They refused to allow an autopsy in Texas, which is Texas law. So the Texas doctors tried to stop them from taking the body, but they said, no, we're taking it. So they took it, they fly it back to the Bethesda Naval Hospital. They then do the autopsy there, which, in another court proceeding, which is with the lawyer Garrison that's portrayed in Oliver Stone's JFK movie. Another doctor says at the autopsy in Maryland, in Bethesda, he is told not to cut open and examine the throat wound. He's told it's just a tracheotomy, which it clearly wasn't. And they wouldn't allow him to examine it because they don't want him to say, yeah, it's an entrance wound of a bullet that was fired from the front. So that's in the court records, is him saying that he was told during the autopsy not to examine the throat wound. But on top of that, they have to